What's up, PreApp 1003? My name is Ethan. In this video, we're going to be going over how to get a file from one pipeline section to another. This has to do with the loan status, and a lot of this has to do with the critical dates page inside of a file. Now, if you're using the PreApp 1003 subscription only and not using PreApp Plus or Broker Plus, then you only have two pipeline sections, two file statuses that you can take advantage of, which we will cover in this video for sure. But if you would like to upgrade to PreApp Plus or Broker Plus, then please send a detailed message to support@preapp1003.com, and our team will be able to help you answer your questions and get you upgraded so that you can take advantage of the entire pipeline. For those of you who are already using PreApp Plus and Broker Plus, we're going to be covering how to get a file from the PreApp section all the way through to closed, from the lead status, from the initial subscription, all the way through to closed, purchased, and funded. If you have any questions about denials or suspended or anything like that, continue to watch this video. We have the answers in there as well. Most of this will revolve around the critical dates page inside of the file. So if you've ever had a question about how to work that page or got confused of working with that page, then this video is also going to contain some answers for you. Before we get started though, I do want to encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you don't miss any updated videos or updated features or even new features that are right around the corner, as we will announce them on YouTube. So please subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with what's going on with PreApp 1003. Now we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to get started with the first section of the pipeline, which is PreApps. What is a PreApp? A PreApp, as far as the system is concerned, is a application or a file created based on borrower data, specifically their first, last name, and their email address. Okay, these are the three vital components to creating a file in your account. If you go into your account and you're looking for a borrower who has not given you their email address on the application, then you're not going to find their data in your pipeline. It's that simple. Now, the file will remain in the PreApp section in the lead status of the pipeline until you do the next few things that we're going to talk about in this video. Now, the reason I say that is because you can have an incomplete file, and we go over that in detail in a different YouTube video. But if you run into this issue, or if you have questions about that, then please check that out. The link to that is in the description of this YouTube video. But basically, a PreApp, this PreApp section will contain files that have borrower data. Either it's missing a lot and it's just the first, last, and email, or it has everything that allows you to pull credit, which means that they have completely submitted the application using your PreApp link, and they've given you e-signature, and that just basically means they agree to the terms of use of the system, and they allow you, they've given you authorization to pull credit. Okay, so now that you have that, we're going to assume for the sake of this demo that you have a fully submitted application, which means that they have given you e-signature. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open a file, and we're going to move this file into the PreQualified section of the pipeline. So how do I get my file from the PreApp section into the PreQualified section? The way that you do this is you open the file, you make sure that the loan details tab has all of the information that it needs, and then you click on the left, Forms and Disclosures, and then we're going to click Approval Letter. And once we're on this page, we're going to click in the upper right hand corner, Create New Approval Letter. Now, once you click this, you might see two options depending on how your account is set up, but it doesn't matter which one you click. If you were to follow through with these steps, the file will move from PreApps into the PreQualified section. So we're going to go ahead and click this for the sake of this demo. I'm going to read through all this. You can go through here and check things, make sure everything's right. And then at the bottom, click Submit after clicking that checkbox saying that you agree and you understand that this is just a basic pre-approval letter. Once you do that, that screen will refresh, and if you go back to your pipeline here, and the best way to do that is by clicking the pipelines icon on the dashboard in the upper right, selecting pipeline, you will see that this green pre-qualified section header will now contain the file that we were just working on. So now we have gotten our PreApp file into pre-qualified. We've got it from one section to another. Okay, let's go ahead and keep moving. The next section of the pipeline is TRID apps. So how do I get my file into the TRID apps section? And the way that you do this is you enter the 6 pieces of borrower information into the file that are required to trigger TRID disclosures. So let's go ahead and do this really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and open a file that's in my PreApps status. I'm going to make sure that they have their name. I'm going to make sure that they have their social. and I'm going to make sure that there is income, there's positive income. I'm going to make sure that the loan details is filled out, and I'm going to go over to the property details tab and make sure that there is data in the street address field specifically. All right, you obviously would probably want to make sure that the city, state, and zip and all that is filled in too, but the critical one for the system is the street address field. Okay, so we'll go ahead and make sure that we have some data here. I'm going to put a number and a fake street name, and I'm going to click update. Okay, so now that we have the file in the PreApp section, the next section is in processing. Now I want to mention one thing. Now that my file is in the PreApp section, to move a file into the PreApp section, it does not have to be already in the PreQualified section. The PreQualified section and the PreApp section are not connected. However, moving a file from PreApps into any of the other subsequent sections, they are connected. So just wanted to point that out. You can take a file from the PreApp section, from the lead status, and move it right into the PreApps section by entering those 6 pieces of information that we talked about. You don't necessarily need to issue a letter. Okay, so I wanted to point that out before we move on. The next section is in processing. So how do I get my file from the PreApps section into the in processing section? And the way that you do this is you use these icons in the status column of the PreApp section of the pipeline here, this orange header where all the borrowers are and everything. You'll notice the status column of this portion has a red icon, and you'll notice here on my demo that there are a few with green icons. And basically these icons are going to be successive. So if you click this first one while it's red and you mark it green, there'll be another icon you'll see here that appears, and basically you're just saying that disclosures were sent, and now this new icon is marking the file as having disclosures received. Okay, now there's a third icon, and once the page refreshes, it appears. Oh, there we go. So now I have intent to proceed. That's the last icon. It is red, so we'll go ahead and click that. We'll set it, and now my file has 3 green icons next to it. So that just means that I have a file in TRID, and there are 3 subsequent critical dates that we can review on the critical dates page by clicking this calendar in the action column to the far right here. And if we scroll down to the TRID application header and we click it, we see that disclosures sent, disclosures received, and intent to proceed all have dates next to them with little calendar icons that will let you edit those dates. So what does this mean? This means that now I can get my file into the in processing section. If I don't have these dates in my file, I cannot move my file into the in processing section. So what's the last step? The last step is to add a processor to the file, assign the file to a processor. And the way that you get a processor assigned to the file is by going back to the pipelines page, and we're going to scroll down to the PreApp section, and you'll notice that there is a column that says processor. So for this file, we're going to click in the processor column, which says not set, and I'm going to select self-assign. And now that I've selected self-assign, that file is now in the in processing section. It is out of the PreApp section and into the in processing section. Now you'll notice in my demo account that I had more options than self-assign. If you are a new user, or this is your first time moving a file into the in processing section, you might only have self-assign. That might be your only option, and that's totally okay. It will work. But if you want to add processors and you have any questions about that, please send a detailed message through the support tickets function in your account, or send it to support@preapp1003.com. Either way, our entire team will see this and we'll be able to help you out and get your questions answered for you. Moving on. How do I get my file from in processing to the next section? The next section is in underwriting. Now, to answer this question, we kind of have to open a can of worms. What we're going to do, since we're on the pipeline page, we're going to click the calendar icon in the action column for this file. And this is going to take us to the critical dates page for this file. Now, the reason that this is kind of opening a can of worms is because there are several line items beneath the in processing header of the critical dates page. Each of these can have a date added to them. However, since it's not necessary for the sake of this video, for the sake of this demo, doesn't mean that you're not going to need it as you work with a real file. So I wanted you to know where those are at. You'll see, of course, for example, appraisal ordered. It has a yellow calendar icon to the right. I can click that and I can set the date for that. And once I set a date for add appraisal ordered, I can go back, and the subsequent line item right beneath it, which is appraisal received, will have an icon next to it. I can click that and mark that appraisal as received. So that's just what's going on in the in processing portion of the pipeline, portion of the critical dates page, and that's what you're going to need to know as you're working through a file. But for the sake of this video, since we're going from section to section, we're going to keep moving to the in underwriting section. How do I get my file from in processing into in underwriting? To do this, we're going to be on the critical dates page in the file, and we're going to toggle the in underwriting header here, so that way we see the subsequent line items, initial underwriting and resubmitted underwriting. We're going to click the calendar icon to the right of initial underwriting, and we're going to click yes, set it. That's just going to be a timestamp for whenever you click it. You can always go back and edit it if you're trying to mark it as a different date by clicking the green calendar icon and changing the date and then clicking update here. But you'll notice that once I've added this date for in underwriting, initial underwriting, in the critical dates page for this file, that the pipeline icon to the left of in underwriting on the page is now green. This means if I go back to my pipeline page, I will see this file in the in underwriting section of my pipeline, which you can see here. So now that my file is in the in underwriting section of the pipeline, I want to move it to the next one. The next section is approved with conditions. So I want to mark it as approved with conditions. And the way to do this would be to, once you're on the pipeline, you'll see in the status column for the file that it says initial underwriting. You can click that and then mark it as approved with conditions. So the conditions would then need to be sent and received, right? So now that we have the file in the approved with conditions portion of the pipeline, the next section would be clear to close. So how do I get it from approved with conditions to clear to close? The way that we do this is we open this section of the pipeline and we click on the status column that says waiting on conditions for this file. We're going to click this and put conditions received. And once this is done, the page will refresh and it's still in the approved with conditions section of the pipeline. We want it back in underwriting. And why do we want it back in underwriting? I'll show you that in just a second, because we're still trying to get it to clear to close. So let's go ahead and click conditions received in the status portion, in the status column of this section of the pipeline. We're going to click resubmitted underwriting. Now, when I click all these things and I'm clicking yes, mark it, please note that what I'm doing is basically creating timestamps for when I'm clicking these. For this file, you can always go back to the critical dates page inside the file and change the date and timestamp to match what you need it to match. So if you're ever worried about, oh, I'm a day late in marking this, that's totally fine. Go to the critical dates page and change it. So let's continue. We want to get this file out of in underwriting, and we don't want to put it back in approved with conditions. We want to put it in clear to close. We're going to click resubmitted underwriting here in the status column of the in underwrited portion of the pipeline and click clear to close. And once we do that, we have our file in the clear to close section of the pipeline. Now that we have the file in the clear to close section of the pipeline, the next section, of course, would be closed. How do I get my file from clear to closed? This one's actually fairly easy. What we're going to do is we're going to click in the status section of the pipeline here, and we're going to click the not set link here that says that the closing date is not set, basically. And when we click that, it's going to take us to the critical dates page for the file. If you scroll down to the clear to close line item of the critical dates page for this file, you'll see that there is a date. And if you click the clear to close line item, you'll toggle it open and see 3 subsequent line items. The thing is, you don't need to fill these out to mark the file as closed. You'll notice that the closed line item has a calendar next to it already. You can go ahead and click that and mark it as closed, or go ahead and click through each of those 3 subsequent line items for clear to close as needed, and the closed line item will still be there at any time for you to mark. So the short answer, how do I get my file from clear to closed? Add a date to the closed line item on the critical dates page. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. For the sake of this demo, we're going to go ahead and add a date for the closed line item for this file. And now that I've done that, if I go back to the pipelines page, you'll see that my file is in the closed section of my pipeline. And we have a few icons here that I want to point out before we move on. So we have in the status section, we have a date, and we have a little red icon here that looks like a money bag, and it says funded. And so if you go back to the critical dates page and you click the closed line item, you toggle that open, you'll see there are 2 subsequent line items. One is funded and one is purchased. So this, of course, correlates to the funded line item on the critical dates page, just like the in the TRID section, the disclosures sent icon will correlate to the disclosures sent line item on the critical dates page for that file. So we're going to go ahead and click the funded icon here on the pipeline. The page will refresh, and if I go back to that file, I see the icon is green now. If I click the red purchased icon, which is now next to it, I can go ahead and mark that as purchased as well. And once I have these two things done, I can go back to the critical dates page and see that there are dates and timestamps for both funded and purchased under the closed line item of the critical dates page. So that's how you get a file from pre-apps, from the lead status all the way through to closed in your pipeline. Now, since we are talking about the critical dates page in these sections of the pipeline, I do want to point out suspended and denied. These are also options as far as sections and line items on the critical dates page. So how do I mark my file as suspended? How do I get my file into the suspended section of the pipeline? You go to the critical dates page for that file and you add a date by using that little calendar icon to the far right of the suspended line item on the critical dates page. How do I mark my file as denied? How do I set my file as withdrawn? The way to do that is you have to add a date to the denied line item of the critical dates page. And once you do that and the page refreshes, you'll see that there is a subsequent line item for the denied section of the critical dates page, and it says denial reason, and you can click here and set it as withdrawn, or you can set it as approved but withdrawn, or incomplete app, or something like that. And you'll also see that there is a denial letter sent line item. In another video, we will go over how to actually send that denial letter from inside the system, but I do want to point out that the date is right here, and you can edit things as needed here on the critical dates page. The last thing I want to show you on the critical dates page in the system for file is rate locked and rate lock expiration. These two line items will correlate heavily. Scheduled closing and registered up here at the top are pretty straightforward, right? So let's go ahead and click rate locked, the little calendar icon to the far right, and let's go ahead and set the date for today. Now you'll notice that that there is a rate lock expiration option at the bottom of this window here, and what you'll click is you'll select 15, 30, 45, or 60 days. You just make a selection, and when you click add rate locked, two dates will be added to the critical dates page, one for rate locked and one for expiration. I know that can be pretty straightforward, but I wanted to point it out just in case I didn't want anybody to miss anything, okay? Now, if you have any questions about something else that we covered but didn't go over in detail, please drop a comment in the YouTube comment section of this video, or submit a ticket in your account using the ticket icon in the upper right hand corner, or of course, send a detailed message to support@preapp1003.com. All of those options will hit our entire team, and we'll be able to answer your questions and help you out. We do appreciate your business and your patience in watching this whole video to learn how to take advantage of the sections of the pipeline, how to move your file through the pipeline, and how to take advantage of the critical dates page. Hope you learned something in this video, and we will talk to you all next time. Thanks.